Welcome to the Advancing Excellence podcast. Are you operating with a robust succession plan for your organization? Succession planning is key for all elements of your organization as it reduces risk and ensures continuity in leadership. In this episode, you'll learn why simply naming the heir apparent doesn't typically work, key components of a succession plan, as well as tips for building a sustainable organization. Let's begin.
Welcome to the Advancing Excellence podcast. My name is Kimberly Kaler, and I am here today to talk to you about succession planning. I actually gave a presentation on this topic last week, and I thought I'd pop in podcast format to talk a little bit about it because it's something that I get a lot of questions about. So let's start first by pausing. When I said succession planning, what jumped into your head? Chances are it might have been grooming someone to be the heir apparent. And that's typically what I hear when we have conversations about succession planning. But what I'd like you to expand your mind to consider is that succession planning is really a chance to prepare. It needs to go beyond just grooming an heir apparent because that doesn't always work. In many cases, it really ends up being a failure. Succession planning really is the opportunity to prepare and make sure that your organization doesn't go into a crisis. So why does this matter? Well, first of all, 45% of managers say their organization isn't doing enough to develop future leaders. And 43% of managers also said their organization is lacking in terms of training programs. And succession planning really is employee development, professional development, as well as a lot of strategic planning. So key reasons that you must develop a succession plan is risk management, stability, leadership development, and then also making sure that you're in tune with your workforce needs. So we have a unique situation here right now in the industry with regard to both employee engagement and member engagement being at an all-time low. So somewhat disenfranchised workforce, member engagement, and most of the associations that I talk to are saying they're really struggling to get their members engaged, or their member engagement looks a lot different than it did in yesteryear. So really key that we're looking at all of these factors when we talk about succession planning. Succession planning does provide a sense of stability, especially during a time of crisis. So it is that roadmap for the immediate interim operations and covers that transition period. And if you've listened to any of our podcasts related to crisis planning, crisis communications, crisis organizational management, you'll know that having a succession plan is a really key element as well. Also ties quite a bit to leadership development. So a plan for succession helps fill in and identify what those skill gaps are, and gives you the opportunity to start building them out now. What are the future needs of your organization? Talent development is also key, so ensuring the organization has the necessary talent to meet its strategic objectives. Maybe pause here for a moment. Have you updated your strategic plan recently? And if so, did you spend time actually looking at the people, the human capital that you need to be successful in implementing and meeting the objectives of that plan? Workforce needs also is key. So succession planning is an essential tool in forecasting workforce needs. With the rise of trends like the Great Resignation and silent quitting, all organizations need to be prepared for that potential loss of talent. And, gone are the days when our grandfather went to work for General Motors or Ford Motor Company, and they worked for 40 years and they got their pension and went home. They never considered going to a different place, a different location. So we need to really make sure that we recognize what our workforce is looking for right now. So a successful succession plan really works through workforce needs and development. So does a succession plan, is it really just for the C-suite? Again, that's typically what is thought of when we talk about succession plans, and the answer is no. With employee mobility at an all-time high, it is really key that we think of succession plans for every part of your organization, for every person, for every role is really key. So what does a succession plan actually include? Well, a succession plan should include key skills and traits for all positions, job descriptions, operational knowledge and processes, including all those passwords, communication best practices, and really lay out a structure. And it's really key that you have those discussions in the very beginning of any sort of operational plan. So that operational knowledge, think of all of the things that a CEO or maybe your head of finance or any key player in your organization, the data that they have, the passwords they have, the security clearance they have. What happens if that person leaves? And we see it all the time. Organizations will call us. One of the biggest challenges, believe it or not, is actually social media. The marketing person's the only one that had the username and password to Facebook, to LinkedIn. And your organization's basically held hostage trying to get that back, or maybe who actually has access to the GoDaddy account for your website domain. Really, really a big struggle. So including in that operational knowledge, having some sort of data control sheet with passwords, banking signatories, contacts, governance, board minutes, bylaws, lists and contacts for your financial planners, lobbyists, legal, your event planners, shipping report procedures, processes, everything from database contacts, your contracts, all those contracts you have with different vendors. Are they all housed in one place? Do you have access to them? And then also making sure that you're building out crisis scenarios as well. So key components of that plan is really, in addition to identifying all the lists of the passwords and the data and all that minutia, is also talking through if somebody leaves, who is in charge, especially from a leadership position. Is it the next layer down of leadership and management? Is it your board of directors? How does that all work? You want to have some sort of clear chain of command and outline who is responsible for managing operations, especially in a departure that is unplanned. So really key to actually managing that. So a succession plan, key components of it would include what happens during that immediate reaction, maybe those first couple of hours. So let's say, an untimely departure of your CEO or a high-level VP. You all wake up the next day, that person is gone for whatever reason. So who immediately talks to the other employees? Who is the one that's sending out the messaging to customers, to clients, to other vendors, to members? Who includes any sort of messaging with regard to legal, etc.? So really key, if you can have that outlined beforehand, it's going to really help in terms of navigating that crisis. Having some key messages already outlined as well. So a sample draft message, something that you'd pull just from your crisis files. After blank number of years, the president of our organization has departed. XYZ is grateful for their efforts in advancing. During this transition, leadership responsibilities will be handled by so-and-so and the core leadership team with support from our board. The search is underway for inquiries, contact so-and-so. And then having a sample message draft that also can be ready to go to clients, or if you're an association, a nonprofit, to your members. Again, you're going to have to edit them, you're going to have to update them, but it really helps to actually have those pieces in place. So pulling that plan together. One final thought that I want to bring to you that I teased up at the beginning of this conversation just talks about naming that heir apparent. So often I have seen, especially in the association space, that they name an heir apparent 2, 3, 4, sometimes 5 years before the departure of the executive director or the president and the CEO. But over that time, while they're training that person to take on the new role, they failed to actually take a market look, an industry look, and see whether or not what they're grooming that person for is actually still a fit. So for example, if you are grooming Joe to take over Mary's position and you're using Mary's current job description and Mary departs after, let's say, 3 years, but that job description hasn't been updated, but your industry has drastically changed. Your member needs have really, really changed in terms of what they're looking for. That can be a huge miss because you need to actually stop and pause and ask yourself, what is it that we need from our organization at this time? It may still be Joe, but it may be Joe and somebody else, or it may be Joe, but we're pulling some things off of his plate, or maybe things that aren't really a fit for Joe that Mary did really, really well. So again, just going down this path of having a succession plan and just naming the heir apparent can be really, really dangerous to the overall effectiveness of the strategic plan for your organization. So wrapping this all up, how do you get started? Meet with your leadership, your governance about the need for a succession plan and start putting the key components in place. Create that control document to include passwords and key contacts, develop sample messaging, gather those job descriptions, have them in place so you know at a point in time where things are, because it'll help quite a bit in the time of change in terms of where you want to head. And then make sure you create skills development action plans and review this at least on a yearly basis. AOE has a lot of experience, not only in developing succession plans, but also recruiting, change of leadership, and as well as workforce development. So if we can help at all, let us know, reach out to us. Thank you so much for listening. Look forward to catching you on the next podcast.
Thank you so much for joining us. We hope this session provides value, and we hope you will join us for our next podcast.